A fiery explosion that killed the daughter of a close Putin ally has sparked a host of theories about just who's responsible. 29-year-old Daria Dugina, the daughter of Alexander Dugin, also known as Putin's brain, died in the blast Saturday night. This eyewitness video appearing to show the car on fire and a distraught Dugin at the scene. Today, Russia's FSB security agency is blaming Ukraine's secret services for the murder, but has provided no proof. Ukraine has denied it. It says Wednesday is Independence Day in Ukraine, the same day also marking the 6-month anniversary of the war. And joining us now is four-star retired General David Petraeus. He is the former CIA director and served as commander of U.S. Central Command and also commander of NATO and U.S. forces in Afghanistan. General Petraeus, it's great to see you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Andrea.
Well, Russia's state-run media is reporting witnesses say Dugin was expected to be driving the car. We have not confirmed that, but switched vehicles at the last minute. General, what are the implications of this bombing to someone so close to Putin? She was a well-known broadcaster, putting Putin propaganda out on the media, on state-run media.
Well, Alexander Dugin was reportedly described as Putin's brain, as you may recall, and one of those who was a bit of an intellectual architect for the invasion of Ukraine. His daughter Daria was a well-known propagandist, as you also note. The problem is it's just not clear who really carried out this action. There are various accusations. One could be some kind of dissident group within Russia who are trying to take actions against Putin. But again, that is not clear. It's not entirely possible that this is some kind of inside job, because Alexander Dugin had fallen out of favor a bit in recent times, and obviously the invasion is not going very well. There have been a number of scapegoats for that already in the military ranks. So again, without knowing more about what really took place, it's still hard to assess what has transpired.
But it could become some sort of an excuse, certainly, for some sort of retaliation against Ukraine, especially you've got the anniversary of the invasion, 6-month anniversary this week, as well as Ukraine National Day, Independence Day.
That's correct. And President Zelensky, in fact, has put out a warning to Ukrainians that Russia could take action. And he did that, I think, even before this particular assassination took place. So there could indeed be some kind of response. But I think the big development in Ukraine right now, Andrea, is that the Ukrainians, for the first time, have seized the strategic initiative. In other words, the Russians are now responding to them much more than the Ukrainians are responding to Russian actions on the ground. Yes, the Russians are still trying to seize additional territory in the southeast, but it's very, very incremental. They're taking very substantial losses, and they're never able to turn their very modest tactical gains into some kind of operational success. So you don't expect to see something more significant in the southeast. And in the meantime, the Ukrainians have been isolating the Russian forces that are west of the Dnipro River. They're basically taking out all the bridges that connect southern Ukraine, the occupied Russian part of southern Ukraine, to that bridgehead, if you will, across the river on the western side. And it appears that they are going to try to liberate that area in the month or so that lie ahead. But more importantly, perhaps even than that, the Ukrainians have been using the precision munitions provided by the U.S. and other NATO nations very, very impressively. They have been taking out Russian ammo supply points, headquarters, fuel depots, assembly areas, even airfields all the way into the Crimean Peninsula, so that nothing is safe anymore. What the Russians thought were, again, safe rear areas just are not. And this is forcing the Russians, first of all, to push these assets much farther from the front lines, making it much more difficult for them to logistically supply their forces, and then literally to move some of the aircraft all the way back into Russia proper. And what that means is, of course, that they'll be even less responsive than they already have been, noting that the close air support by the Russians has not been particularly impressive. So this is creating additional problems for the Russians in the south, and is something that those of us who hope to see the Ukrainians make gains in the weeks and months that lie ahead can capitalize on during that time.
And the administration also authorized more weapons on Friday, which will start making their way to reinforce those efforts as you just described them. We also
That's
learning
correct.
from the,
Yes.
we're learning
And
now
among
from the
those
state.
weapons,
Sorry.
there are unmanned aerial vehicles that are a continued considerable upgrade for the Ukrainians over what they have. There's 15 of them. They'll use those, I'm sure, experiment with them. They don't require an airfield to take off, and they don't require one to land. So again, that's going to be another development here as we see how they can use this and bring this to bear, as they have so expertly with other fairly simple drones so far, using them really as forward observers in the Russian rear for the missile and artillery and rocket strikes that the Ukrainians have been carrying out.
I want to ask you about Zaporizhzhia, the nuclear plant. It's the largest in all of Europe. It's, of course, now controlled by the Russians. You've had Erdogan and others, Macron, calling and trying to get Russia to let nuclear inspectors go in. There was a call just this weekend, yesterday, I guess, with the president and Boris Johnson, the outgoing British Prime Minister, of course, and Macron on this point, as well as on Iran and other issues. And we're now learning that the Russian ambassador, Ambassador Antonov in Washington, was summoned to the State Department and, really demarched on this whole nuclear issue because they're using it as a fortress. So there is a real chance that artillery fire will land on, a reactor or spent fuel. I mean, there's a real fear from Europeans I'm talking to, as well as Ukrainians, of course, about a nuclear incident. And the UN inspectors have not been allowed in.
No, this is a very legitimate fear. And again, everyone basically has this. And what the Russians have done, as you noted, is take what should be a protected area, according to the Geneva Convention. This is similar to, if you will, a church or a school or some very clearly civilian site. In this case, one, though, that could unleash nuclear effects on the surrounding area if there is some kind of explosion that exposes the core of a reactor. I'm not predicting here another Chernobyl, but that is in the back of our minds as we think about this, of course. So this is something that is very significant. The UN Secretary General raised this when he was in Ukraine recently. There's been a lot of effort to try to get the Russians to pull their military assets out of these areas, not to park them inside the various warehouses and facilities, and in a way protect them by being in a protected area. However, the Russians have not exactly been high on observing the Geneva Convention so far, and I doubt that that's going to be the case in the weeks that lie ahead.
General, finally, I want to ask you about Afghanistan. Friday is the first anniversary of the suicide bombing that killed 13 of our troops at Kabul airports, Abbey Gate and others there. The U.S. still hasn't gotten many of the people who helped the U.S., including translators, out. Is there anything that can be done to speed this up? I know the State Department is trying and the volunteer groups are trying, but it's a very slow process.
Well, these reports of trying just are not satisfactory anymore, Andrea. What we have to do is do. The State Department itself reported over 70,000 former battlefield interpreters who have left behind. And it's not just they who are entitled to a special immigrant visa, but their family members. So you're talking at least well over 165,000 Afghans for whom we have a moral obligation. And we need to meet that obligation. It's no longer enough to say, well, the lily pads to which we want to take them are full or this or that. We just need to get the assets into the locations and the positions that can expedite this process. A year is far too long to have gotten the very modest number out of there. And when we have sought to do that, we have been able to do this. And we just need to get serious about, again, meeting what truly is a moral obligation for the United States of America.
Thank you so much. We should point out they have targets on their back, all of them, the families, the translators, and it's a real, more than a challenge. It's, as you point out, a moral obligation. General David Petraeus, as always, thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Andrea.